moving on to important issues like what Lily Tang Williams has to offer. Now, this is from The Standard. She wrote a Chinese immigrant's personal warning on critical race theory. Now, this was featured in a local paper, and The Standard actually picked it up, and it's not by The Standard, it's by Lily Tang Williams. And they added some pictures, and it's fitting too. And I wanted to read this to you because she was such an inspiring woman. People need to know her name. She is running for office. She is just, she shows what we need to know and what we need to do. All right. We need to be aware. We need to get into politics. We need to be adamant about being against critical race theory and the rest of the red flags that are flying all over the place. Some of them are Chinese flags. Other of them are the classic red flags where, hey, that's something you need to check yourself. All right. Here it is. This is her, this is an article that she wrote for a local paper, and I'm just going to read it for you guys. My name is Lily Tang Williams, and I grew up in communist China under the reign of Mao Zedong during the painful era called the Cultural Revolution. The origins of the Cultural Revolution preceded my birth, when a Western ideology, Marxism, was injected into China by Mao. You know, I didn't even mention this on the show with her because it was hard to interrupt her because I didn't want to have her stop. I did a deep dive on Marx. Now, if you missed my deep dive on Marx, it was awesome. Nisha helped me out, and she did a lot of research as well. Marx himself realized that he was wrong. As he got older and the more research he did, he realized that his early teachings, the things that all of Marxism is based on when he was young and ignorant, he realized those things were wrong. The Communist Manifesto, he asked the people that were like, you know, praising his glory, look, stop reading that book. Please stop sharing that book. Like, you should put that book away. I'm ashamed of it. Like, Marx didn't even like his own teachings, okay? But these people latched onto it. He even realized later on in life that capitalism is pretty important. You need capitalism. This is something that people don't report on Marx. He actually reached that point where he realized capitalism, you cannot have like a society without capitalism. Marx himself said this, but people are so, they don't care. They're like, well, whatever. We're just going to adhere to his younger writings. He wrote the Communist Manifesto in his 20s. The dude didn't know. He was blinded by his friends, and he was swept up. All right? Anyway, I'm getting a little sidetracked here. Even Marx didn't like Marxism. Marxism would later evolve into Maoism. Like all forms of Marxism, Maoism epitomized the worst in humanity: division, hatred, envy, and vengeance. Unlike most revolutions, the Cultural Revolution was not a war against a regime, but a regime-inspired holy war against its own people, society, and culture. Mao's Cultural Revolution sought to destroy the four olds: traditional ideas, culture, habits, and customs. Through it, he led a campaign to silence dissident opinions, purge his political enemies, and in the process, destroy age-old social institutions and gain absolute power. Let me just take a pause real quick. Does that sound familiar to you? Does that ring a bell? Any sort of similar things going on today? Well, let's just go back to what Maoism epitomized. It says here, division. First, let's just go over that. Well, I mean, I look at the political landscape, I look at the world today, and it is divided by politics, by skin color again, which is just absolutely bonkers. These people are pushing it like it's some sort of virtue. It blows my mind away. In fact, I just saw a post on Twitter. I'm gonna find it real quick because it's just like, it's true. Look at this. It's from Act for America. They said, 1860s Democrats treat people differently based on skin. 1960s Democrats treat people differently based on skin. 2021 Democrats treat people differently based on skin. It doesn't change with these people. They continue to want this. And it's division. And that leads to this hatred. Because if you're not on their side, they hate you. So the left hates. The right just thinks they're misunderstood. Because they tend to be based on logic versus emotion. Hate is an emotion. If you're stuck on hate, you're stuck in emotions. And that's something that we need to get away from. Envy. They have something I don't have. They worked for a life, but these people aren't looking at the work. They're looking at the life that they built and said, I want that. How come they have that? Because they worked for it. But they're taught that it's because of racism. It's because of society, systemic issues. No, it's because you didn't work hard enough for it. If you want something, you work for it. Lily Tang proved it. She came here with $100 that she had to borrow from someone just to move here. All right? And now she's an entrepreneur. Now she's got a family, a loving family that took her in. She wasn't an American. She was Chinese. She doesn't look like a white person. Shouldn't the system have oppressed her? She's not oppressed. She worked for it. And that's why they hate her. Because she has something. And what's next? Vengeance. Exactly. Vengeance. What do you do when you're envious of somebody and think that they're oppressing you because of it? You seek vengeance. What do you think Antifa's doing right now? They're out there seeking vengeance for being oppressed or demanding reform on a system that they claim has pushed them down, instead of actually realizing that that system is one of the freest systems on the planet in the history of humanity. These people are clueless. Okay, I'm going off on a tangent here. Let me go back to the article. So I was just going over what Maoism really epitomized. Division, hatred, envy, and vengeance. And then let's go about the four olds, traditional ideas, culture, habitats, and customs. The nuclear family. They're trying to get rid of that. Traditions, traditional ideas, church. I'm not even that religious myself, but I want anybody to be able to worship whatever they want, believe whatever they want. It's to the point where you're not even allowed to believe what you want. If you believe a certain way, if you believe in the Bible right now, you're criticized. You're hated. I see it with Bryson Gray all the time. That dude is incredibly knowledgeable about the Bible and adheres to it. All right? And I respect that. Now, I don't agree with all of his opinions, but I don't hate him for it. I respect his worldview, and it differs from mine, but I don't need him to validate me. These people need to be validated by others, and that's another issue. That's envious, and they were seeking vengeance. If it bothered me, I would demand that Bryson change his mind. Which, I don't know if you know Bryson, all right? But he's not going to change his mind. And I respect that. He's standing firm with his traditional values that he cares about. And that's what Mao's Cultural Revolution sought to destroy. Traditional ideas, culture, habits, and customs. Oh, and it continues. Identity politics. I mean, we know identity politics. What happened in Occupy Wall Street? People were realizing that it was these elites with money that had control of the power, the banking systems. And they were like, and guess what happened a year later? Obama passed a law, the NDAA, that allowed basically the media to lie to the American public. And guess what rhetoric was being pushed around? Racism, safe spaces, these people, systemic problems with the, defund the police. Like, all this stuff started in 2012, 2013, right as Occupy Wall Street was a powder keg that was about to go off. Well, they stopped it. They said, introduce them to identity politics. There's a meme that's just like, just introduce them to that. And she talks about it here. It was the hallmark of Maoism. dividing people into 5 classes. Red classes, and 5 red classes and 5 black classes. Now, the red classes were identified as poor, lower middle class peasants, workers, revolutionary soldiers, cadres, revolutionary martyrs. I mean, I don't want to say the entire LGBTQ community, because I know personally friends that are not a part of this side of things, but it feels like that's swept up in it. The Democrats, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the people that Karens, I guess we'll just lump that into them all. People that report on their neighbors, people that are going up to someone who isn't wearing a mask and going, "You aren't wearing a mask." Shut up, Karen. All right, you're part of the red class. And then you have the black class, which is landlords, rich farmers, counter-revolutionaries. I guess that would be me. Also, bad influencers. I'm assuming that's me also, because YouTube deleted my video yesterday. The day after I had Lily on my show, they went and deleted episode 88, which was a long time ago. That was 130 episodes ago. What are they doing going through my old videos? What are they trying to find something to get me out? I don't know. But it feels pretty similar now what I'm reading here. And rightists. That's a little vague of a term. I guess we can apply what we think of what it is. Mao shut down the schools and the universities, urged the Red Guard, urban youth, to hate and hold struggle sessions, to shame the black classes publicly by forcing them to self-criticize, confess their crimes, and denounce themselves. What does that sound like to you? Critical race theory. I'm sorry for being white. Said me never. Okay? I will never say that. I'm never going to apologize for something I can't change. That is a characteristic that I can't change. It has nothing to do with who I am as a person. And it shouldn't for you, and it shouldn't for anybody else. And that's what Mao was doing, and that's what critical race theory is doing. Seems awfully familiar. The consequences for defiance were assault, torture, imprisonment, and re-education camp. Some children were so brainwashed they would even change their surnames, cut ties with their families, and publicly denounce and betray their families. I mean, I know friends of mine that their own families are like, "You're crazy, you're a nut job," because they don't want to get the vaccine. Now, that's just simply whatever you want to take it. It's just kind of sad. Mao's Cultural Revolution was a top-to-bottom orchestrated social justice movement like no other. An estimated 20 million Chinese died during the Cultural Revolution due to Mao's toxic ideas and murderous policies. Today in China, no memorials or museums to those of this forgotten Holocaust exist. Even the phrase Cultural Revolution is banned on the internet by the Chinese government. They don't have any memorial. I mean, I heard about it, right? You don't really learn about it in school. I mean, I've learned about it later in life. And I didn't even know it was as bad as it is. 20 million people died through this Cultural Revolution. It's crazy. I mean, if you listened to the show on Monday, you heard a lot of the stuff that Lily went through as a child. And it is effed up. In today's populist, racially charged social justice movement in America, I see the shadows of Cultural Revolution in critical race theory and in the ideology that inspires this movement. For those unfamiliar with critical race theory, it is the idea that American law, society, and institutions are inherently racist. Whites are born racist because of the cultural domination by white people in furthering their own economic and political power at the expense of people of color. After I left China for America at the age of 23, arriving in Austin with nothing more than a suitcase, I discovered Texas to be filled with the kindest, most generous people I have ever encountered. There I was, a stranger in a strange land, being invited into American homes and offered help. That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Every time I've ever been to Texas, every single person I've ever met has been incredible. Texas is awesome. Now, 33 years later, I am living the American dream. This is not something one would expect to happen to a non-white, non-English speaking foreigner in a country that is systemically racist. My experience is certainly not unique. While critical race theory and Maoism are not identical ideologies, they share five features in common. The first is the development of a quasi-religious following of zealous youth devoted to unrestrained destruction of what is old to advance that which is new. Wow. Whereas Mao called for traditional Chinese culture to be destroyed, critical race theory calls for dismantling systems of oppression, which, like Mao's definition of the old, is subjectively dependent on what they define as oppressive. Exactly. They have no idea what oppression is. They are clueless. It feels like they would claim they're being oppressed if the internet cut out and they couldn't access Instagram. That would be oppression, because a storm knocked out a power line or some sort of, cell tower that they couldn't connect to the internet. I'm being oppressed. They have zero idea. The second feature is that both ideologies reduce complex problems to that classical Marxist dichotomy. Society is constituted of those who oppress and those who are oppressed. Critical race theory divides society into oppressor class, white or elite, and oppressed class, people of color. Third, the processes of critical race training are similar to those in struggle sessions. Writing self-criticizing letters, apologizing for being born white, public shaming, instilling guilt and hatred. I mean, Karlin Borisenko did a YouTube video on white fragility, the book by Robin DiAngelo, and it is embarrassing. It's basically exactly that. Saying all white people need to apologize, they're inherently racist, they should be, it's not it's almost to the point of public shaming. It's called white fragility. Get over yourself, Robin DiAngelo. Gosh. Fourth, both ideologies are taught to school-age children without parental consent. The students are made to feel ashamed and guilty about their family history going back generations. Children are taught and trained to be social justice warriors by advocating for racial equity, which is about wealth redistribution. They don't want equality, they want equity, which is basically just creating a class of poor. It reduces everyone to the poorest level. That's what equity does. Okay, this guy has a lot, this person has nothing. Let's take what he has and take it away. Well, guess who gets that? The people in power. Because they don't want to do the work. They want all the regular people to do the work. I say regular people because that's how they think. They're elites and we're all regular people. All right, we all do the hard work. We all break the freaking rocks in the field and grow the food, and they collect all of the income. If you listened to my show on Monday, you heard Lily and what it was like living in a communistic regime. Granted, she went on to explain that it really was a fascist regime. And guess what? They're still in power. They just celebrated their 100 years of being in power. It's crazy. Okay, the fifth, the chaos, violence, identity politics, and social division conjured up by both ideologies open the way for political factions to systemically divide and conquer until usurpation of the existing political system is one checkmate away. That right there is frighteningly close to where we are right now. They're practically saying, if you're Republican, you're a Nazi, you're a terrorist. If you're a patriot, you can't even be a proud patriot anymore. You can't wave the American flag anymore without people going, that person's a racist. Really? The American flag? Do you know what the American flag even represents? If you don't, then you shut your mouth. All right? And learn before you talk ill about what that flag represents. These people are absolutely clueless about what it means to be oppressed. She continues here, I genuinely believe that the spirit of American individualism would resist the siren's song of Marxism that I left behind. I was naive. It once again returns under a different name, as it always does, and now threatens to poison America, my refuge. This time, however, I have nowhere to run, and I plead with you, learn from this immigrant's story and the questions of history. Fight back. Lily, thank you for joining me on my show, and thank you for your words and messages, because you lived it. You were there. Yuri Bezmenov was right. They want to infiltrate. And guess what? They have. They're here. They're everywhere on this entire planet. It's crazy. So please share Monday's interview with her. It is powerful words. Please share all my videos. That would be fantastic. If you do, thank you for all of your shares. But it's most important that this kind of message gets out, because I'm afraid also. I don't want to lose America. I love America. I love being American. I wouldn't lose that for the world. All right. And I don't want America to be lost. That's why part of the reason why I voted for Trump, because I don't trust Biden at all. I think he's a shill for another country, and it is in America.